Outlast is a series of survival horror games developed by Red Barrels, revolves around each game's protagonist attempting to survive navigating through extremely hostile environments, which are dimly lit and swarming with enemies who would stop at absolutely nothing to see the protagonist killed in the most brutal way possible, with the only thing assisting you in the dark being a camcorder that was probably purchased on discount from the Walmart electronics section. The paramount objective of this game is to discover the depraved and macabre actions of the Murkoff Corporation, along with aspects of the franchise emphasizing stealth, puzzle solving, retrieving items to advance, and picking up batteries and bandages along the way, because apparently in this world, the most devastating flesh wounds just need what you could get at Walgreens for a couple of dollars. If only medicine were that easy. With the first story following the daring adventures of Miles Upshur, it details how he investigates the horrors of Mount Massive Asylum, located in the rural mountains of Colorado. The asylum was reopened not too long ago, and has been operating in secrecy, but after a tip from an anonymous source, Upshur navigates his way into the facility and finds out what a ghastly concoction of innovation, religion, and a never-ending source of headlines that sound like articles from The Onion can produce. The DLC to the original game, Whistleblower, tells the story that encompasses points before and after the original game, and concludes Mount Massive Asylum's story. Gamers play as Waylon Park, who is a software engineer contracting with Murkoff, who actually has a moral compass, and has some level of empathy with the people experimented on in the facility. He's determined to expose the corporation's horrible atrocities. The Murkoff account is a 6-issue webcomic miniseries put out on Red Barrel's website for free to connect the gap between the storylines of the original game and Whistleblower. It centers around Murkoff litigation officers Paul Marion and Pauline Glick, and their shady dealings with the company and what their role was in reopening the asylum. Outlast 2 is a new journey detailing the trails of Blake Langerman and his wife Lynn, who are taking risks to uncover the stories no one else would even dare to think of documenting. As they delve deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole started with the peculiar murder of a pregnant woman, they're led miles into the Arizona desert to what's possibly the worst atrocities ever known to man. The Outlast trials are set in the height of the Cold War era, when nuclear war between the USSR and the US seemed inevitable. In this upcoming game, players take on the role of test subjects abducted by the shadowy Murkoff Corporation. Imprisoned in a secret Murkoff facility, players will be thrust into a series of physical and mental ordeals, tormented by iconic characters and challenged alone or in teams to survive with their sanity intact. Miles Upshur, a freelance journalist, receives a tip-off from an anonymous source about Mount Massive Asylum, a psychiatric hospital owned and operated by the Murkoff Corporation. He enters the facility without permission and finds the bodies of the asylum's staff strewn about the hallways, and now escaped inmates, known as the Variants, roaming the grounds, with some being hostile and some being apathetic to his presence. Progressing through the upper dormitories, he encounters an impaled tactical officer, who in his dying moments tells the journalist to get out of the asylum while he still can. Journalism gold. Upon attempting to exit the dormitories, Upshur is attacked by a powerful inmate named Chris Walker, who throws him through a window and down to the atrium. Upon regaining consciousness, he encounters Father Martin, an inmate who believes he's a priest. Martin says Upshur was sent by God to be a witness to his cult, and has to stay in the asylum, and then departs as Upshur passes out again. Out of all the things to LARP as, wow. Awakening, Upshur starts his attempt to find a way out of the building while avoiding attacks from Walker and the other inmates. However, as he attempts to unlock the main doors from security control, he is ambushed and sedated by Martin, who again states that he must remain at the asylum and witness the events there. Martin shows him footage of the asylum security forces being slaughtered by a mysterious, seemingly supernatural entity known as the Wall Rider, before transporting a now unconscious Upshur to the asylum's holding cells. If I were a patient here, I'd be infuriated if my insurance was paying for this. Upshur is forced to work his way upwards through the sewers Shawshank style after encountering a pair of inmates, the twins, who express a desire to kill and eat him. However, the duo abstain from attacking for the moment, as Martin has asked them not to harm the journalist. Upshur makes his way through the sewers while avoiding attacks from hostile inmates, finally reaching the asylum's showers. While attempting to escape through the showers, however, he is attacked yet again by Walker and escapes through the vents. Delving deeper and deeper into the asylum, Upshur is soon chased into a corner by several inmates, inmates, but escapes through a dumbwaiter, only to be captured by one of the asylum's psychotic inmates, fashioning himself as a doctor, Richard Traeger, who collects body parts from other patients. We'd best hope this guy is a licensed practitioner. Traeger imprisons Upshur, strapping him to a wheelchair, and slices off 2 of his fingers using a large pair of shears. Upshur manages to escape, and a chase ensues, followed by a struggle when Traeger breaks into the moving elevator, but Upshur pushes him out, causing Traeger to become stuck between the elevator's gates and is ultimately crushed between the floors. He makes his cuts, Upshur makes his, as dull as they may be. Encountering Martin again, Upshur exits onto the asylum grounds, but he is chased back inside by the Walrider, revealed to be a ghost-like being which Upshur can only see with the naked eye, and while using his camera's night vision, he is forced to circumnavigate the ruined stairway to access different floors of the building by following a trail of blood Martin left for him to follow. Honestly kinda G, not gonna lie. Upshur finally locates Martin in the asylum's chapel to witness the latter's death, self-immolation on a crucifix, before taking the now repaired primary elevator down. Martin tricks Upshur, however, and instead of taking him to the exit, the elevator takes him to an underground military establishment beneath the asylum. Wow, conspiracy theorists are right to speculate as to what's at Area 51. Well, at least it'll make for a riveting story. While searching for an exit, Upshur is chased by the Walrider again, and finds Walker on the other side of a door he runs through, who incapacitates him. However, before Walker can kill the journalist, the Walrider attacks and brutally kills the inmate before leaving. Upshur proceeds into the facility and meets Dr. Wernicke, originally believed to be dead, the scientist in charge of the entire experiment, known as Project Walrider. Wernicke explains that the Walrider is the result of nanotechnology experiments conducted on an inmate called Billy Hope, and that the Walrider is controlled by Hope. We love whenever that word is used in film and media in general. If anything is unexplainable by natural means, they just say nanotechnology. Wernicke orders Upshur to find Hope in the laboratory and kill him by shutting off his life support system, thus killing the Walrider. Because when you're the protagonist, you have to do literally everything. Yes, the old adage, with great power comes great responsibility, is true. After accomplishing this task, Upshur is caught by the Walrider, who brutally beats and possesses him. Limping towards the exit, he is confronted by Wernicke, who is accompanied by several armed guards, who repeatedly shoot Upshur. As Upshur collapses to the floor, the screen fades to black and Wernicke's voice is heard as he realizes Upshur has become the Walrider's new host. Panicked gunfire screams and mauling sounds are then heard briefly before the credits roll. Wayland Park is a software engineer contracting at Mount Massive Asylum for the Murkoff Corporation. After several encounters working directly with the morphogenic engine and witnessing the torture that Eddie Gluskin endured, he decides to send an email to Miles Upshur, reporting on the corruption of Mount Massive, meaning we know he has extremely large balls. Shortly after sending it, he is caught by his employer, Jeremy Blair. As punishment, Blair has Park committed and forced to endure the tests of the morphogenic engine. However, after the Walrider breaks free and begins causing chaos at Mount Massive, Park manages to escape his restraints, taking a camcorder with him because he knows World Star would be frothing at the mouth for this kind of shit. He roams the facility as surviving guards and personnel try to escape from the newly freed prisoners, trying to find a radio that he can use to contact the authorities. During this time, he constantly eludes a bearded cannibalistic prisoner named Frank Minera, who wields a mechanical circular saw blade and tries to kill him in many ways, including trapping him in a furnace. Just as Park manages to find a radio, Blair appears and destroys it, insisting that no one can reveal the secret of Mount Massive. He leaves Park to die at the hands of Chris Walker, only for Park to escape. Park eventually wanders into a secluded area of the vocational block where a variant by the name of Dennis, inflicted with dissociative identity disorder, captures and offers him as a sacrifice to a prisoner named Eddie Gluskin, whom he calls the Groom. Talk about being down bad. While initially eluding Gluskin, Park falls into an elevator shaft and gets a piece of debris lodged right in his skin, reducing him to a limp. Park is eventually captured, where he discovers how Gluskin repeatedly tortures and mutilates male prisoners' genitals, treating them like his brides before killing them, so we don't think monogamy is exactly the right thing for this guy, or having any contact with any sort of human at all. He attempts to kill Park in the same way, but Park manages to escape at the last second with the help of another prisoner who attacks Gluskin. After Gluskin kills the other prisoner and returns to Park by hanging him in a gymnasium, full of hanging bodies. Park puts up enough resistance so that Gluskin is caught up in the multiple ropes of his pulley system and eventually impaled by a metal rod. As daylight finally breaks, Park continues throughout the asylum, discovering that Murkoff's paramilitary forces have already arrived at the scene and are killing every person they see and asking questions later. Park manages to elude them as they are all killed by the Wall Rider and makes it to the main atrium. There he finds a wounded Blair lying against the front door and pleading for help. However, as Park approaches, Blair stabs him in the stomach with a knife, declaring that no one can know the truth. But before he can deliver the finishing blow, he is attacked and killed by the Wall Rider. Park staggers out the open front door and past the military vehicles towards the red Jeep waiting by the security gate. As Park enters and the Jeep starts it up, he notices a dark figure. Miles Upsher's Wall Rider sustained a broken body slowly exiting the asylum with a dark mist surrounding it. He manages to escape and slam through the entry gates just as the figure exits the asylum. I hope this was all worth it to advance Upsher's journalistic career. In the epilogue scene, a fully recovered Park has gotten in contact with a leaking organization to submit his secret information on Murkoff 2. Park is sitting at a laptop with a video file of all his recorded video from the asylum ready to be uploaded to the internet. A man associated with the leaking website standing in front of his desk informs him that it will be more than enough evidence to ruin the Murkoff Corporation, but warns Park that doing so will result in Murkoff doing everything it can to punish him in return, including threatening his family. Despite some initial hesitation, Park ultimately decides to take the risk and uploads the video. As the credits roll, once he closes the laptop, confirming Park has grown an extra testicle. Paul Marion and Pauline Glick are recovering after the former sabotaged Murkoff Corporation. While Marion is telling his story to the FBI after giving himself up, Glick is helping Murkoff find her former colleague. They start at the beginning of their work together back in late 2008 when they invested the Hatbox murders among the patients of a Murkoff institution, the Spindletop Psychotherapy Clinic for Iraq veterans in Hatton, Texas. Marion and Glick continue their story years later when they're prepared to uncover the origin of an anonymous complaint and threat from a Murkoff employee among Mount Massive Asylum. The Pauls tell their track of Wayland Park right after the Mount Massive Asylum incident in 2013 when they followed a link between Miles Upsher, accidental witness, and William Hope, former patient of the morphogenic engine program. The investigation of the mitigation officers on Wayland Park is unsuccessful, but brings the attention of an unknown watcher on Paul Marion. Marion lies to Glick and investigates the coordinates given to them by Simon Peacock after they agreed to ignore his warnings, which leads him to a temple gate in the Arizona desert. The beginning shows Sullivan Noth poisoning the last of his followers before making his way into the church where Blake Langerman is. It then shows that the radio towers are part of the Murkoff facility and are being swarmed by ants who are controlled by the Wall Rider, and the towers are knocked over and cause an explosion along with a large emission of light. Next, we see Pauline Glick talking to her underlings and is angry that someone, most likely Simon Peacock, has leaked information to Paul Marion and are unable to find Marion. Murkoff workers in hazmat suits are pulling the dead bodies from all over Templegate, and they have found Blake Langerman alive but catatonic without a baby, proving that he hallucinated it. Glick wants him thoroughly and psychologically analyzed to figure out what has happened. She then states she wants Marion found, preferably dead, for he is dangerous alive. Paul, meanwhile, has been tied up and interrogated by Peacock at an unknown location. Simon is searching for the Wall Rider and asks what Paul knows. Paul tells him that it was destroyed by Murkoff. When pushed further about Miles Upsher and Billy Hope, Paul says that Miles is dead and Billy is dead twice. Marion wants to know what Peacock wants from him, and Peacock says in a complicated way that the Wall Rider was drawn to Templegate by religion and men wanting to communicate with God. This is because imprinting the belief of God into someone works just as well as imprinting the images used in the morphogenic engine into an individual's head, creating a new host for the Wall Rider. Peacock performs the sign of cross, portraying Rudolph Wernicke as the Godfather, and the Wall Rider as God the Son, and Noth as the Holy Spirit. The issue ends with Amen, and a black ant, part of the Wall Rider, is shown crawling away. The player dons the role of Blake Langerman, cameraman and husband to Lynn Langerman, an investigative journalist who's looking into the suspicious murder of a pregnant woman in rural Arizona. His trip starts on a helicopter where he wakes up from a dream. In the dream, he sees an old friend he had in the 4th grade by the name of Jessica Gray, who committed suicide. After waking from the dream, he begins to discuss the details with Lynn. There's a sudden flash of light which causes the helicopter engine to fail and results in a serious crash, separating him from his wife. The search for Lynn begins. In his desperation to find his wife, he runs into crazed and homicidal villagers. The flash of light shows up again and causes paralysis among the villagers, and Blake manages to avoid succumbing to the light. He finds Lynn. She's obviously very traumatized and will not speak about her experiences. They both decide to focus on trying to escape. Blake and his wife bump into a Christian search party. Another group called the Heretics joins him, but after killing the Christians off, they decide to abduct Lynn, leaving Blake alone in the woods. He manages to evade the search parties, but there is another flash of light, which prompts him to have a flashback. In the flashback, he's back in Catholic school, where his friend Jessica committed suicide. After a while, Blake runs into a man named Ethan. He reveals himself to be the father of Anna Lee, the pregnant woman Blake and Lynn were investigating. During his explanation of the story, Ethan summarizes that Prophet Noth raped Anna, got her pregnant, and then sent Ethan to kill her. Instead, he lied to Noth, giving her a chance to flee. As stated in the police report, Anna Lee died from strangulation and had high traces of mercury in her bloodstream. Ethan helps Blake and allows him to hide in the basement of his home. Ethan is murdered by an old cult member by the name of Marta, who is unaware of Blake's presence in the basement. Blake flees from Ethan's home, evading more search parties, and finds a chapel and encounters a man named Josiah. He's restrained and missing his eyes. Josiah reveals that he was punished because he refused to tell the cult where Lynn is being kept. Blake hides in the confessional and watches as Noth tortures Josiah's spouse, Mary, until he finally confesses that Lynn is in the mines with the heretics. Noth kills Josiah and Mary. On his way to the mines, Blake's visions get darker and more frequent, and encounters Laird and Nick, who dubs Blake the Skulled Messiah. They attempt to reenact the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus by nailing Blake to a cross. When he tries to escape, he'll fail and end up getting buried alive. Eventually, Blake does manage to escape and is tasked with evading another religious cult called the Skulled. Stumbling upon a boat and making a raft as he proceeds down the river, Blake's vision begins to worsen. He reaches land and continues towards the mines, evading a group of heretics. When he reaches the mines, he finds an elevator which proves to be faulty. It breaks and plummets into the darkness. Upon surviving the fall, and deep inside the mines, Blake encounters Val and her group of heretics from earlier. Not wanting to give up Lynn, they attempt to kill Blake. Anyone with a camera in this series just can't catch a break, I guess. He manages to escape Val, but mistakenly ends up in the middle of a heretical gathering where he finds Lynn. Val finds Blake as he's having another vision, this time revealing a crucial part of the narrative. In his vision, Blake sees what happened to Jessica before she committed suicide. Blake awakens in the mines and is chased by some heretics until he finds the exit and comes across Lynn. Together they get the hell out of Dodge as fast as the storm rages. Marta shows up and tries to kill the couple before she can, but the cross from the top of the church falls down and kills her. Inside the chapel, Lynn dies giving birth. Blake passes out with the baby in his arms. When he awakes, Noth is sitting next to Blake. He starts rambling on about killing all of the Christians and then instructs you to kill the baby. He then commits suicide by slitting his throat. Blake walks to this town square with the baby, and everyone has seemingly been massacred. Following this, Blake has one last vision. A girl that looks like Jessica is in the Catholic school kitchen with bruising around her neck. After she says a prayer, the game comes to a finish. We're more than ready to experience what the Outlast trials have to offer when it's released on the 28th, and we look forward to kicking off our horror season with this new installment in particular. We're sure playing Outlast in a multiplayer setting will only make us enjoy the series more.